Hello and welcome to our newest episode of LeicsChat. This is the third episode in our How to Adult series, and today we're going to be talking about experiences as international students and how that has benefited our life as professionals. So my name's Bethan and I'm from the support department in the Students' Union, and I'm joined today by two guests who are University of Leicester alumni, and their names are Marcella. She's from the States and she studied in Leicester in 2017 and 2018. And I'm joined by Lydia, who's over in Spain, and she studied in Leicester in 2015 and 2016. Brilliant, got that right.
Yep.
Lydia, if you want to start and just talk a bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. Hi, my name is Lydia. I studied at the University of Seville. I started in 2012, and in 2015, I participated in an Erasmus program at the University of Leicester. So right now, I've been working as a program coordinator in the Texas Tech University Center in Seville. The Texas Tech University has a campus here in Spain, and some students can come and do their study abroad here. And I'm just here to be helping them and assist them during their time in studying abroad and have a great time while they're here.
Great. And Marcella, if you want to talk about your time.
Sure. I actually studied at the Texas Tech Center in Sevilla. Bethan probably told you. So that's kind of where I got my being abroad. And once I graduated from Texas Tech, then I went to the University of Leicester. Right now, I work in commercial real estate in Dallas here as an asset management coordinator. And I'm actually in the process of moving back to the UK, so in the middle of a pandemic.
Great. And just so the listeners know as well, because obviously we all know each other, so you know, but so I also did a year abroad, but I had the reverse because I went to another country, and I went to America and I studied at Louisiana State University. So I did that 2016 to 2017. You'll be able to hear different experiences from all of us throughout this episode, and hopefully we can shed some light on how we've all used our time abroad to aid our professional lives now. So starting out with our first topic in this podcast, so thinking about your time in Leicester. So when you've been applying for jobs or at any point during your career journey, how would you say your time at Leicester aided you? Lydia, if you want to start out first.
Sure. Well, I started at Texas Tech as an internship from the University of Sevilla, and I started as a language assistant there. So that it started thanks to Leicester, because I kind of did an internship very similar as a language assistant to help the Spanish department with students that had some Spanish problems or for pronunciation or whatever. And thanks to that, I really enjoyed teaching Spanish to foreigners. So that's why I applied for my internship, that after that it became my job. And thanks to having the experience of being a student abroad, and I could relate to the students and everything, so the staff helped me to have more admin responsibilities and everything. So it helped me a lot, my experience in Leicester and then how I could apply it in my career.
Brilliant. And how about you, Marcella?
So I noticed that when I was applying for jobs back in the States, one of the best icebreakers that was kind of different from other job applicants was talking about my time abroad. So anytime there was any quiet time in my interviews, I was able to kind of take the conversation from being super serious to just talking about my experience academically and just day to day abroad. And I will also say in my job specifically, working with a wider range of people, being around international people, I was able to adapt to a lot of different people from different places, which has really helped me in my career.
Yeah, I'd say I kind of have a mixture of the two of you with that. So at the moment, obviously, I work in student support. So I found that that's really helped me, having been an international student, be able to support students in ways that I probably wouldn't have done previously. I think it's made me a lot more hyper aware of how different students can have completely different circumstances, and knowing where the gaps kind of are in the system. Because I don't know, when I was an international student, I did feel sometimes to be left behind a bit compared to some of the home students. And there are so many other difficulties that come with being an international student. You know, whether you speak the language or not, you're getting used to a new culture completely. But yeah, like you said, that has become a topic in interviews when I have had them. People asking me, they're like, wow, Louisiana, that must have been so different, because obviously, like, it's a red state, like it's very different culturally to most of America, let alone the UK. So that's been really useful, getting used to different cultures, different people. And I don't know about you guys, but it kind of made me have a more broad look on the world, in terms of I didn't feel so centralized to the UK anymore. I felt like, you know, the world's kind of your oyster. You can think about all these different career paths. And I think before I was quite shy, especially in my undergrad, before I went away. And I think I just kind of picked the comfortable options. But because it forced me out of my comfort zone so much, now I feel more prepared to go ahead and do that in the job world. Like, how about you guys? Do you feel that's the same at all?
Yeah, I do feel like that. Like, I was very shy. I was like the typical student here in Spain that goes back home every weekend and goes back to the university city. And being in Leicester, it made me be more independent, more aware of things, and being able to, you know, open up to so many other options whenever.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I feel exactly the same way. Like, I never knew what I wanted to do, like, in terms of a career, but being an international student, I just kind of, like you, I just realized I could do a lot of careers. Like, I mean, really, it's just what you take with you and how you complete your course successfully. So, like, I work in real estate, and I didn't know anything about real estate, but whenever they were interviewing me, like, they did say that, you know, since I did have experience abroad and, like, was able to do that successfully, like, they saw a lot of potential for me to be able to complete, like, or be able to be successful at what I do right now. So yeah, I 100% agree with y'all.
So thinking about your time abroad, and like we were just saying how we used to be before and how we are now, do you feel by going abroad and studying as an international student changed your kind of ambitions and future plans in any way? Marcella, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so before I studied abroad, I was just looking at, like, going abroad as something temporary. Like, for me personally, I had planned to study and then come back to the States and have this, like, fancy job, which I even hate saying. But after I studied abroad, I realized, like, I don't know, I could do so much more than that. And I don't see it necessarily as temporary anymore. Like, I could see myself working in other countries, you know, if allowed. But yeah, so that's just kind of how my mindset changed before and after.
Yeah. How about you, Lydia?
Oh God, my change was huge. I have to agree with Marcela. Like, before, I just wanted to be an English teacher in a secondary school close to home, and that's it. My idea was, when I started my degree, I didn't want to do my Erasmus program because I had so many attachments at home that I didn't want to do like a huge change that it was an Erasmus program or international student. And after that, it was like a huge change in career because I could do whatever I want to. I can keep working in Seville, but the next day maybe I want to go to Paris to work there, or go back to the UK and study there. And also personally, I've changed hugely. Like, it has been like 180-degree change for me. I was so scared, so terrified. I struggled a lot my first few months in Leicester. And after those first few months, after the culture shock, I loved it there. And I fell in love with a city that I barely knew about.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good to hear. Like, I'm really glad you both had such positive experiences. I feel like I was the same. Like, I really struggled when I first went out to Baton Rouge. Um, it was so new. It was such a culture shock. I didn't know many people there. Like, I think two people had come from my university, and I wasn't, they were boys. I didn't really have much in common with them. I didn't have any friends out there. But just the whole campus culture that was out there that kind of like engulfed you, that was something that I hadn't experienced at Leicester, and I was very fortunate to experience out there. And it definitely did change things for me. Like, I'd always been obsessed with America from a young age. Like, obviously I did American studies, so clearly I had a close tie with it. But I think it was always like a kind of pipe dream for me. It wasn't something that I ever envisaged being a part of like my actual world. And as we were saying stuff, there's still like visa restrictions, like many, hurdles to get by to even think about like getting something like a job out there. But it has kind of made me think outside the box. So recently we started an international alumni association for my college. And just kind of like starting and talking and networking with different people through that. It's really nice to know that there is like more opportunities like outside of the East Midlands. I think if I hadn't have done it, I would have been quite content in taking a job in Leicester, which I know like hypothetically I do have right now. It's not a forever job. And I'm leaving. This is one of my last weeks, so that's not news to the company, anyone who's listening. But yeah, and I have new opportunities through that. And even now, like me and my partner are talking about potentially maybe in the future doing something like a PhD in America, or maybe even going for a visa in Canada and things like that. And I just don't think I would have ever thought of doing anything like that. I think it would have just always remained some form of pipe dream that stayed that way. And the confidence that I gained from doing something like a year abroad, because it completely chucks you out of your comfort zone. And for the most part, like, we're really young, like whether you did it as a postgraduate or undergraduate, like you're so young and you're flying to another country on your own and trying to figure something out. And that is just such a big wake-up call. How were your guys like first week experiences when you're on your year abroad? Like, Marcella, when you landed in England, that must be so crazy.
Yeah, so I thought, since I had studied in Sevilla and I didn't know much Spanish, like I thought, well, you know what? It's English. Like, I think I can adapt really quickly, because in Spain it took me a long time just to even understand like kindergarten Spanish. Like, and so when I got to England, I was completely in culture shock. Like, yes, it's the same like language, so to speak, but there are so many differences, and the culture is so different than what I was used to. So like I was really insecure, just because like a lot of stereotypes aren't the best for Americans. So I think I was like just insecure, like, okay, I don't want to be that like American, that stereotypical American that people think of, which most of my friends aren't even like that, like in America. So I was just really insecure. But the longer I was there, like the more I broke out of my shell, and I ended up meeting a lot of really great people, and I'm actually like engaged to like the guy I was dating there. So yeah, I'm really, really glad I did it. But I just also wanted to throw out, like, if anybody else is like kind of there right now or felt like that, like it doesn't last forever, like that feeling of insecurity.
Yeah. You actually lived in Hulls, didn't you, Lydia?
Yes, I live in Opie. And at first it was very quiet, but then when the freshers came, it was such a huge shock, because I was already in my 4th year of my university degree, and it was all this 18, 20-year-old youngsters having like the first experience at the university, and I was like, what's going on in here? It was such a huge change for me, because I was so used to living in an apartment in Seville with very quiet people, just studying, and now it was such a shock for me. And also, like, I started like my BA, it's English language and literature. I'm used to like the American accent and everything, so I thought, like, if I watch, UK shows, I was like, oh, okay, I'll know what they're talking about. And I remember the first time I met my partner, I didn't understand him at all. Like, I didn't understand his accent, his northern accent. I was like very confused of what was going on in my.
He's from Wigan, for anyone listening. We can understand that. Brilliant. Yeah. So that kind of brings me quite nicely to the next section. How did you get on with making friends and making connections out there, and how do you maintain those relationships now? Lydia, if you want to start.
Yeah. So I went with 2 people from Sevilla coming from my same university, but I didn't have much relationship with them while we were in Leicester or maybe in the process before that. So I didn't have much relationship with them. But after that, I met another Spaniard, which she's from Salamanca, and she's now one of my best friends. So we keep contact very, like, almost weekly, talking how are we and checking up in each other. And also, as I said before, I met my partner and my year abroad, and also like since has been 4 years, so we have been coming and going. So I have been going a lot to Leicester, and I have been in contact with a lot of our friends and everything, and it's so nice to be able to see each other always. And so
always ending up in corn exchange.
Yep.
How about you, Marcella?
I would say for me, like, I went to Leicester knowing absolutely no one, so I definitely had to like jump out of my shell a little bit. And I started joining a lot of like international organizations, and that's like how I met the majority of my friends. And that's actually how I met you that one night.
Yes.
At the Loaded Dog, I think. Yeah. It was at an international organization. And then, oh my gosh, I was so shy before I went there. I was never the person to like just introduce myself to like strangers and people I'd never met before. But I just kind of realized like I wasn't going to meet anybody if I didn't like just put myself out there. Not like excessively, but just, we're all students, so it was a little bit easier. And then I met my partner as well, like while I was there, and that also helped me feel a little bit more, I don't know, a part of the culture.
Yeah, I clung also to a lot of international students when I was at LSU, but that's actually worked out quite well. I was quite worried when I was there, like, I haven't met enough Americans, I need to meet more. And like, I do have a good American base out there. So I had a roommate for a while before I decided that that was way too American for me and I'm way too antisocial. But she's lovely, Katie, and she was just a freshman back then. So it was nice to kind of like meet people and have that initial experience of, even though I was in my 3rd year, to have that sort of freshman experience when you arrived at college, because I kind of lived that through her. And yeah, I guess like you said, putting yourself out there. I was catered, so I used to just sometimes go down to the dining hall and sit on a table, and some people would come over and they'd be like, oh, other seats are taken, do you mind if we sit here? And just like talking to people while you're having breakfast and things, which I don't think I would have done in Leicester. Like, I really don't think I would have at all. But I think when you're an international student, you're interesting to the locals. So like, it's easier to start off conversation because at least one person's going to ask you where you're from. So that really helped. And now in terms of staying in contact, I've got friends across the world. So even like as we're talking about professionalism and how it's aiding our like adult lives in that way, just from that standpoint, I automatically have like a network of people worldwide now that I can call on for advice, or I can talk to from a professional standpoint if we're in the same line of work and things. So that's really useful. That's something else that is quite difficult to gain from studying at your home university. So one of the things we do in all of these podcasts for the How to Adult series is the expectations versus reality. So all of us have like prepared one little bit to talk about from each of our own personal standpoints, and we're talking about it in terms of what we had as a planned expectation and then reality of it within our graduate life after studying a year abroad. So I'll go with mine first. So my expectation was, I thought that my year abroad would kind of just be an additional year. So mine did actually count towards my degree, so it hit me academically. But for the most part, people always described it as kind of like a gap year. So I kind of thought it was going to be the same sort of thing, you know, you'll have some great memories, it'll be a bit of a jolly, and then that will be that, and it will be your Leicester education that gives you the jobs and things like that. Whereas the reality is, as I mentioned previously, I'm part of the official alumni network, so that gives me loads of chances for networking. My year abroad means I can now go study in the US if I wanted to for postgraduate education, which I wouldn't have necessarily had the chance to previous. And if I ever were to move to North America, it's such a widely recognized college that I'd also have like that benefit. So in the end, like obviously it turned out to be more than just a gap year. Marcella, if you want to go next.
Yeah, so I think I kind of mentioned this before, but in the same aspect of you, like I thought it was something temporary. And one thing I was also thinking, like when I was applying to Leicester, was okay, like this is just gonna be like a breather for me from bachelor's to like getting a job. And then it wasn't that easy, the master's program. And I didn't think that I would get my like feet on the ground so much, in the sense where like I could see myself like potentially coming back and, you know, getting a job and keeping lifelong friends that I met there. So that is definitely something that I was not expecting before. And I'm really happy that it did happen though, like that.
Yeah. How about you, Lydia? Well, like I have to agree with both of you about, you know, we all think that it was a gap year, and that's it. Like I used to see people going out a lot and everything, and they were like, oh, it's not too much work or anything. And when you get there, it's like there's a lot of work that you have to do, a lot of research, and also I had like a different time, a different way of studying here in Spain, and I thought I had to apply that when I was in the UK, and it was like a huge difference academically because it's more research, not so many exams as well. And also like you have like, even though you didn't know a lot of people, when you get there, like you get to know like so many, and you have a huge network when you get there. Well, when you get there, not like, sorry.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Sorry, I got a bit.
Gosh, I was thinking as well, like one that would be for both me and Marcella would be the expectation that you can just go and get a visa afterwards and go and work and be happy and go back to where you lived. And both of us have found out the hard way that America and the UK do not work that way. They do not.
No.
So yeah, if you're thinking, I mean, even now though, like if Brexit comes into play, like it could be even difficult to get a visa to work in Europe. So be warned, you'll probably fall in love where you studied, and then it will be really difficult to go back. But yeah, I think we all covered there, like what definitely a lot of people have in terms of expectations and reality when they come to studying abroad. So to kind of finish things off, if we can all talk about like what tips we would have for current international students at the University of Leicester who are maybe about to graduate or they're about to finish their year abroad, in terms of making the most of their time in Leicester and how that should be able to aid them when they go and apply for jobs later on. Lydia, if you want to go first.
Yeah, thank you. If my tip would be for them, like if they are afraid, they are already out of their comfort zone, so they shouldn't be afraid at all. If they see an internship, they should apply for it in Leicester, because that will help them a lot later for their CV, or like just enjoy their time and get out of most of it. It will be a great experience for them.
Brilliant. How about you, Marcella?
Yeah, so I definitely think that the same as Lydia, like definitely enjoy like the current moment that you're in. I know it's a little bit difficult with like the pandemic and everything, but I will say like those moments, they're not going to be as easily like you're not going to get them back as easily. So like definitely enjoy like if you enjoy like going to your local coffee shop, like do that. But also, I mean, whenever you do go back and you're like starting to apply for jobs, like it's easy to get intimidated just because like it can be really competitive, but like don't let that discourage you because you've already like gotten out of your comfort zone so much. So even if like one company like says like, you know, maybe you're not the right fit, like don't get discouraged. Like it most of the time has nothing to do with you, and it's just like the direction that that company is looking for. And everything that you learn abroad, you'd be surprised like academically and outside of the classroom, like how much that really affects you and your success and whatever you do moving forward.
I agree. I think everyone who does any form of time abroad, whether it's a semester, a year, or their whole degree, it's such a special, unique experience. And it's something that only you can really talk about and make the most of it to employers, because you know like how much you learn on that year, you know how much you push yourself out of the comfort zone, and an employer is going to see that if you have a way of conveying it well. So definitely don't think of it as, well, it wasn't professional experience per se, so I don't know how to incorporate it, because it's interesting and it's obviously like contributed to the person you are going forward into your adult life. So yeah, that's everything for today. Hopefully we've answered a lot of questions that people have and given them some advice and knowledge to take forward into their graduate lives. So thank you both so much for joining me today. It's been great talking to you. And if anyone wants to check out the rest of our How to Adult series, they can have a look at leicesterunion.com/howtoadult. Thanks guys, bye.